And apparently, I am live. Let me know if you can see me and hear me, especially tonight, because my my tech guy is sick in bed. So, um, I didn't want to haul him out of his sick bed or anything like that. Uh, hey, Alan. Hey, everybody. Can you see me and hear me? Oh, thank you for that, Haruka. Appreciate it. I had to do something that I uh, have not done before that I won't bore you with on my own. So I'm I'm growing up to be a big boy on this tech stuff. So yeah, you may see a reflection of uh, my pumpkin. Let me see here. I only have the one camera on tonight, and you may see above my head. You may see above my head my autumn tree. So oh, I think maybe I need a little bit more light on myself. Is that better? How's that? It's only episode 10 of Thursday Night Live. I'm still working the bugs out. Probably should have had them worked out in episode 3, but I think we're doing all right. So yeah, how are you guys doing? How's your week going? Now, I have a question for you guys that are listening live at least. Are you working jobs that are kind of like a Monday through Friday thing? Is that what it, and then that means that you have one more day and then you got the weekend? I'm just curious. Um, I don't think for me there's a day that goes by that I don't work, even when I'm trying to take the day off. But I think I need one of those days tomorrow. I'm just the the fibro fatigue is just really catching up with me. And I think I probably will work tomorrow, but I think I'll try to make it an easier day than it usually is. So, yeah, the work at home thing, it's really interesting, isn't it? Before COVID, it happened. Plenty of people worked from home before COVID. I mean, people who worked for a company. But when COVID hit and after it hit, it seemed like to me, as someone who's self-employed, looking at it from the outside, it seemed to me that a lot of people with office jobs or jobs like that um, were able to work from home more and more. It sounded like the companies were fine with that or saw the value of it. I don't know. Some people can work from home and some people can't. Dave, Alan, you guys are absolutely right. Uh, Danielle, um, yeah, and I know I sing her praises almost every time I get on the show. But I know you, Alan. I know you, Dave. I know you guys must work just as hard as she does. She's not just trying to get the job done, and neither are you guys. There are teachers that do that. Uh, so yeah, Brian, I'm sorry to hear that. That's I think some people hear that and they're like, "Oh, well, if I can take the medical issues and I'm not hurting too much, then that would be great, wouldn't it?" And no, not necessarily. You know, um, it's there are a lot of difficulties that people don't realize. I was probably bedbound for a year at least after I got sick. When I got home, I tried to work. I was a real estate at the time, and then I don't know. It's kind of like shooting baskets. You're really good at shooting baskets and from the 3-point line, and then I couldn't believe that I wasn't able to hit them anymore. And then finally, it hit me so much that I was just in bed for like a year and a half. So, and I didn't want to be. But anyway, enough about me. So I'm curious. What is the strangest thing that's ever happened to you? If you're watching live and you feel like it, maybe type it in the side chat. And I know people watch this later as well. Uh, Comment below the YouTube video and let me know. So, what's the matter, Kim? Am I bringing up horrible memories? Oh, okay. All right. All right. Here's something. Maybe you guys know this story. Maybe you do. But I'm gonna read this. That's from the BBC. Um, and it's a really weird story about Edgar Allan Poe. This is from September 2019, an article on the BBC. It's called "The Story of Cannibalism That Came True." Do you guys are you guys familiar with this? Edgar Allan Poe was a prophetic master, and I'm reading the BBC article right now, parts of it, of macabre twists and turns. But most uncanny is the book he wrote about a shipwreck and how life imitated art. So here's the story from Poe. Again, I'm quoting the article. A maritime adventure published in 1838, excuse me, it's chock full of seafaring staples like shipwreck, mutiny, and corpse-strewn ghost vessels, along with hostile islanders and a genuinely alarming Yeti-like menace. The book also recounts cannibalism, and this is where it gets truly weird. Yeah, I'm on the side of cannibalism being weird. Poe summed it up in his story, the same name of a man who 50 years later, in real life, would be shipwrecked and exactly has been described in the book, eaten by his fellow survivors. Now, I won't read this whole article. You can Google it, but the name of the guy that they ate in in the story was Richard Parker, and in real life, the guy that they ate was Richard Parker. 50 years later, it's it's weird. All right, so Kim says, you know what? I wish these flies would go away forever. I dreamed an incident with me, my mom, and my sister at least 3 times before it happened. Wow. Um, are you guys reading you made me think of Kim, you made me think of the latest Stephen King collection. And I don't know if you guys have read this yet. I think I asked this last week. I'm sure I did. And I think Alan said he was about right halfway where in the middle where I was. And I'm still at the same place because I've been reading a Charlie Parker um, book, and where's my camera? I've been rereading this for Sunday. So, horror movie, Paul Tremblay. Uh, so in this one particular story, Kim, if you haven't read it yet, I won't recount spoilers, but this guy dreams about something that comes true, and he does it again near the end of the book. I won't give away what happens in the middle, but I do. It is a very. I was figuratively on the edge of my seat through through the whole story. But at the end, someone who didn't believe him believes him because of the second dream that comes true immediately. And he saves some lives and everything because of it. And he's just this ordinary guy, in the book, just a nice ordinary guy. And the th- the three-word phrase that kind of hit me at the end of that and story were the words belief is hard. And you know the woman who did not believe him was a Catholic, so she believed in God and angels and all that, presumably, but she couldn't bring herself to believe. um no, nobody's ignoring anybody on purpose, Oswald, I promise you. um I just I'm sorry I can't get to everyone, but no, I'm glad you're here. So, but one big rule around here: no politics. So, um, that's all I ask of any of you guys. Well, that and basic kindness, but I don't have to ask you guys of that. You're that way anyway. Anyway, Kim, if you haven't read that story yet, in You Like It Darker by Stephen King, I think you'll really like it. Um, is belief hard? Well, it was hard for the Christian woman to believe in that this guy had a dream. Instead, it was easier to believe that he had killed the person. Um, I think belief is hard for some, and it depends on the belief. And if you are a person who is an atheist or a skeptic, and when I say skeptic, I don't mean some asshole that makes fun of believers. I just mean someone who says, look, whatever happened, as long as we have evidence for it, then I quote unquote believe it. Um, Haruka, that was Revival. Yeah, thank you, David. Revival by Stephen King. Um, and I will never reread that book, as good as it is. And it is great. I guess belief is hard for some. It Belief is hard for me if you just use the word, okay, I saw a ghost, now believe me. Well, I don't believe or disbelieve. I just say I don't know, and it's okay to say you don't know. Um, as far as people who, yeah, belief is hard for some. It's not hard for others, and it depends on the belief. But I really enjoyed the story, and I think you'll enjoy it too, Kim. Everybody. Okay, Kim says dream number one. We were driving down a road talking. One of them brought up a certain movie just as we passed a certain road sign. Later, we were driving down that road for real talking, and the movie came up, and we passed that road sign. I flipped out, and they didn't believe me. Yeah, there we go. Belief again. Um, so, anyway, on the Oreo report front, a little bit of a scare today. And last night, she's on this special diet right now. I mean, these things are expensive. I really appreciate the Oreo GoFundMe that I did. Um, they're kind of like they call them stew, and it's basically like it's exactly like that. Maybe more. It looks more like soup. It's got some for cats. It's got some meat in it, a little bit of meat, easy to eat, and a lot of gravy for the cat to lap up. Well, in the last couple of days, she hasn't been eating the the meat at all, and so Danielle gave her some medicine this morning. Um, she's going to give her some more tomorrow, gabapentin and steroids. So I'm hoping that she gets better. In the meantime, at least she's eating gravy, I guess. But I'm a little worried about her. So I'll keep you guys posted. So I won't say who because I don't have permission to, but someone sent me an email after last week's Thursday Night Live and said that I have the gift of gab, and it was a positive. It was a compliment, and I was thinking about that, and I don't know if you guys would believe it, but I was very shy growing up. Um, well, I wasn't shy up till about age 6, and then when we moved up north and joined the cult, I quickly learned that keeping my mouth shut was the best way to stay out of trouble. And I still wasn't going to stay out of trouble, but I'd be in less trouble, hopefully. And then I'd forget sometimes and say something that, what, but why do we have to do this? That kind of thing. That would get me in a lot of trouble. But there were entire days that I would I wouldn't say 10 words in a day, you know? Just I would just, tried to say as little as possible because I was really scared that I'd say something and it would be the wrong thing again. And that shyness kind of lasted probably a year or so after I had left, when I turned 18, and then I started to come out of it. And so thanks for the compliment. I don't know if I have the gift of gab or not. Um, when I see phrases like that or hear phrases like that, I think of just really, really talkative people, that talk a lot. Like my wife's a talker, and I mean that as a compliment too. But yeah, I'm definitely the shy one of us two. So, but I like talking to you guys. I like talking here. I'd like to kill this fly that keeps getting on my monitor. So, so yeah. Um, I know a few weeks back we were talking about my experiences in the cult, and I'm giving that some thought. Um, and how much I want to share, and if I share, should it be like on the page on a Patreon podcast, just so it's not out there in the world per se. It's just among Patreons, which isn't a secret, and I'm not ashamed of. It wasn't my fault, but I don't know. I'm giving it a lot of thought. You guys give me some feedback. That would be great. I'm scrolling back up, see if I missed some comments here. David, by the way, thanks for the nice comment earlier, David. David said I was cultivating late night radio vibes, and I hope so. That's what I was going for. David B says, "My sister and I found an abandoned plywood shed in the woods behind our house when we were kids. There was a half-empty pack of cigarettes and a couple of used plates. Never found it again." Um, so you think somebody was living there without you guys knowing? Okay, thanks, Haruka. Um, yeah, remind me in a few minutes. Remind me in a few minutes, and I'll talk about that a little bit. Along those lines, David, um, yeah, that's happened, and or people been living in people's houses without them knowing about it. Here's an interesting story. It's funny that you bring this up because here's an interesting story. Uh, a woman, this is from fox44news.com. Looks like it's Associated Press. Never mind. Uh, and the headline is Woman was living inside a rooftop grocery store sign with a computer and coffee maker for a year. I guess this store is called Family Fare. It's just like a regular, your average chain grocery store, and the sign is on like the third level or whatever. It goes like that. So it's kind of like an attic is what I'm assuming. And she was there for a year. So imagine that in the house. Now, this woman was homeless, and I think she was just doing what she had to do. So no judgments there. She did what she had to do, and they still don't know who she was because they just sent her on her way. But yeah, Logan showed me a video, and it's this guy. He heard some noises, and it's in his attic. It's on YouTube somewhere, and he's videoing with his phone because he thinks that something's going on. He wants to get it on tape, so to speak. And he gets up into the attic. It's dark, and then this guy comes at him from just out of the attic, and the guy drops his phone, starts running. Um, and I said to Logan, that's probably fake. He goes, "No, Dad, think about it. It's probably not fake. If it was fake, if he was trying to just, you know, uh, arrange something so that he could get a million clicks on his YouTube channel." Sorry, this fly is really bugging me. Um, then he wouldn't have dropped the camera. He would have kept filming. So I thought that made sense. So, Michael, how are you? I'm good. I'm really tired, but I'm good. Parasite? I don't think I've seen Parasite. Oh, and Brandon, the New York tunnels thing. Christopher Buehlman wrote a vampire novel. Well, he wrote several, but he wrote a vampire novel called The Lesser Dead, and it's set in the 70s. And these vampires, they live in the New York City tunnels in the 70s. It's a really good book. Well, I mean, everything Christopher writes is great, but yeah, you should check it out. Speaking of Anchor, Edward, John Paget, uh, John Langan was cool with this. He said it was fine, and John Paget has read Langan's novella Anchor for me so that I can put it on the channel for you guys to listen to, and the audio would not be available anywhere else, and It's one of my favorite novellas, so that's really good news. I can't wait for that to happen. Right now, Langan is listening to it to make sure that Paget wanted him to do this, got all the pronunciations and everything like that right. So, which he probably did, but who knows? Um, anyway, so that, give that a couple months and I'll have that up. Which brings me to something else. And I really need your feedback on this, okay? Um, you guys are familiar with the other podcast I started. There are only 2 episodes so far. The Weird Library, it's a fiction podcast. Lately, I've been feeling like I've bitten off more than I can chew. And I'm not talking about doing these Thursday night things or extra stuff that has to do with Lovecraft eZine. Um, you know, I they switch back and forth, Michael Schumann, as you probably know. But if you go on Google, you're signed in on Google, and you tell Google which streaming services you have, you don't even have to do that. Just go to Google, type the movie into Google, and then look at the page that comes up with all the search results. And typically, with a movie, there'll be something that says like where to watch, and it's pretty accurate most of the time. It'll say you can watch this on Netflix or you can watch this on Tubi or whatnot. So yeah, that's a really easy way to find out. So what was I? Oh, I was talking about the Weird Library. Uh, I'm thinking that I bit off more than I can chew with the Weird Library because there's justwatch.com. I'll have to remember that myself, Alan. Thanks. Because there's a lot of editing and art and so forth that goes into that I pay for. Don't have necessarily the money to pay for. And what I'm thinking is instead of it being the Weird Library, just taking these fiction stories and having a fiction playlist at the Lovecraft Easing YouTube. See you, David. Um, I guess you'll see me more tomorrow when you watch the replay. Have a good night. So, I'd like to know what you guys think about that. I mean, you're not inside my body and my head, and you can't tell how I feel, but I am feeling overwhelmed with that. And if you go to the Lovecraft Easing YouTube channel and you know, you, obviously, like any other YouTube channels, you see the playlist that the owner has laid out. And what I can do is, like there's one for podcast clips. There's a little behind the scenes with Mike and Oreo type thing, playlist and all that. Hey, Darren. And so, one of those would be the fiction playlist, including John Langan's uh, Anchor story. So, am I wussing out, or should I just go with what I can do and do it? All you can do is all you can do. And if I can make the stories available anyway at Lovecraft Easing, then we're not really losing anything. Anyway, you can weigh in on that or not. It's up to you. I recently rewatched Pontypool. So how many of you guys have seen Pontypool? Thanks, Kim. Yeah, the Weird Radio playlist. That's a great idea. Sydney Breyer is alive. Is Grant Mazzy alive still? So I rewatched it. I haven't seen it in a few years. It's a great movie, and it reminds me, um, it's sort of not the same movie at all, but just it dares to be different, like the movie It Follows. I recently watched It Follows and talked Danielle into watching it with me, and scared her half to death, and I promised I wouldn't make her watch horror movies with me anymore. Honey, if you're watching, I am sorry. Um, It Follows is so, so great. I'm going to do a Patreon podcast on It Follows soon because there are so many strange things about that movie and I'm not even talking about the horror part. It came out in 2015 and it's not dated, but if you just look at it, it's sort of got, the neighborhoods and everything, it's sort of got this, it looks like the 80s, you know. And I'm going to take a lot of notes before I do this Patreon podcast. But if you have closed captions on, which I always do, at one point they've got a TV going on and they're referencing a fight that happened years ago. I don't remember when. And so that's trying to say, okay, this happened in the 80s, maybe. But at the same time, the protagonist's sister has either sister or friend, I can't remember which, has a Kindle. And it's this seashell Kindle that kind of looks like this, and she's reading books on it. It's like the director, and I know this has got to be deliberate, but is dating things all over the place. Maybe he's saying that in this universe things didn't progress exactly the same way in ours. I don't know. But if you remember at the very beginning of the movie, the girl on the beach, when she calls her dad, she's calling from a cell phone and she's telling her dad that she loves him and, you know, all that stuff. But the rest of the movie, I don't remember seeing a cell phone at all. And it's just weird. So I want to get DeBronzo's thoughts, Pete's thoughts. Um, yeah, that's true, Kim. But the cell phone thing, no one's got a cell phone. Everybody's got a cell phone these days. 95% of people. Um, it's just weirdly dated in different ways. But then you have the creature itself. Now they're gonna do um, a sequel. I don't know how I feel about that, but I guess if it's great, I'll feel wonderful about it. And if it's not great, I'm gonna pretend in my mind that it never happened. So I hope it is good. You know, I don't remember, but probably when Aliens came out, people were probably saying that they were gonna ruin Alien, and there's no way they could measure up. Or with Terminator and Terminator 2, so it can be done. Uh, but along the line, It Follows makes me think of an old time radio show called The Hall of Fantasy, which is one of my favorite horror old time radio shows. You guys know I like old time radio, and especially horror and noir. And you can look it up on YouTube or Google it or whatever. It's called He Who Follows Me. And it's just Google Hall of Fantasy, He Who Follows Me. came out in the early 50s, just as radio drama was phasing out because TV was hitting. No, I'm not a mean person, but I wish death on this fly. Death. Uh, yeah, give it a listen. I mean, it's obviously it's dated, but it also has this great beginning. I think I've got it queued up good enough. And let's see here. Now you guys tell me if you can hear this or not.
In just a moment, Horror Fantasy will present He Who Follows Me. And now for our story. Adapted for radio by Richard Thorne, entitled He Who Follows Me.
Can you hear it?
I have before me the diary of a dead man. He and his wife were my best friends.
Okay. If you can't make it out, check it out. Sorry about that. But it not only is similar to It Follows in a way, but also at the very beginning, I love this. The guys, the people, it's a flashback episode. So at the beginning, this guy was friends with the people who died, the couple who died, and it's storming outside at night, and he's in his friend's house, and he's reading his friend's journal, and it's just so atmospheric. I love it. I'd love it alone, just for the beginning alone. But yeah, check it out. Old time radio is very, very. I was gonna say cheap, but it's free entertainment. It's just a question of finding the ones that you like. So, all right. Another thing, and I did a poll on the YouTube channel, and most people want me to do this. I was thinking like on either Monday nights or Tuesday nights, probably Tuesday nights, um, doing readings of short stories. Just one per week. Well, my thought is, we can get on YouTube or Audible and listen to a reading, but when is the last time someone read to you live? Um, it doesn't happen a lot, I'm guessing, if at all, for adults. And I'm thinking about doing that. I want to know what you guys' thoughts are on that. Um, Let me know. Probably would be a little earlier than Thursday nights. It would probably be something like, you know, 10 p.m. Eastern instead of 11 p.m. Eastern. Michael Schumann asks, is there any old-time radio adaptations of Lovecraft that you can recommend? Um, there are several cosmic horror stories or close to cosmic horror stories done by, give me a second, it'll come to me. And if it doesn't come to me, if it doesn't come to me while I'm talking, Michael, I'll put it in the comments under this YouTube video and link to it, okay? But it, this is bugging me because it's one of my favorite series, and it was really different. It took some risks. The Dunwich Horror, yeah, I mean it's okay, but yeah, I uh, I didn't. I'm not a big fan of it, I guess. Um, so Edward, you're saying you agree on a discussion afterwards would be interesting. Is that what you mean with the reading? Um, that's a good idea. I had just in mind the reading, but it came to me that there are a lot of stories that I can read that are copyright that are not under copyright anymore. Uh, the story that made me think of this is The Night Wire by H.F. Arnold, which is one of my favorite weird fiction stories. Um, it's just it's very atmospheric, moody. I love that story. You can obviously go on YouTube, and I'm sure some people have read it. But if you want a live reading, we can do that. So I don't know. You guys let me know. What else was I going to talk about? Talked about the Oreo report. I was thinking this week that here is a way to never, never, never have peace. Okay, right, Rubika, thanks. I'll talk about that after this, or I'll say a few words about it. Here's a way to never have peace. If you compare yourself to other people, and I know we all know this intellectually, but I think that we need to absorb that lesson over and over in our lives. Because here's the thing, and I was talking about this with a friend a while back. The it is never, ever, ever apples to apples when you're comparing yourself to someone else. It just isn't, because perhaps that person doesn't have health problems and you do. Not that you should use it as an excuse, but I'm just saying, some people can run and others have to walk. Or maybe, you know, um, it could be anything. There are a lot of genius, wonderful writers out there who are obscure, you know, or not very well known, that are just as good, if not better, than the best-selling authors out there. And only the ones with no humility would tell you that it doesn't just take hard work and it does not just take talent. There also has to be a component of luck with it too. And anyone who says that luck is never involved is doesn't know what they're talking about. Doesn't mean you don't work hard. And it doesn't mean if you're not successful, or at least you don't think you're successful, that you look at other people and say, well, they just got lucky. It's just, I think my point here is that it's just never apples to apples. You can't look at other people and say, I know one writer who says words to the effect of, well, I'm putting out a book every year or year and a half, and my peers are putting out a couple books a year, and that makes them feel bad. But really, if you just look at him objectively, he's doing great, and he's very talented. He's selling books. Um, I'm still trying to think of that old time radio show. You know, Michael Schumann, if you don't see that on the comment on this video sometime tomorrow, then please email me. Uh, Here's the way I like to compare myself. I don't look at other people. Yeah, I think of it as like a good analogy is a video game, where when you're playing a video game, you keep leveling up, right? In most video games. When you play a video game, you're not, I mean, I'm not talking about open world or anything like that. You you're trying to get better, you're trying to get to the next level, and when you play a video game, you're basically competing with yourself. You're trying to level up, and that's the way that I think of life. Is it's not, you know, does this channel have more downloads than me, or you know, this or that or the other. It's whether do I think I'm doing more, and most of all, helping people. Um, that's what it boils down to for me. This life can be really, really hard, and a kind word at the right time, as the saying goes, the smallest act of kindness can be the greatest thing in the world. So, anyway, I don't know if you guys wanted that, but there it is. No, my cult, the cult I was in was not Scientology adjacent. Um, when I don't know what I told you guys before. I know we didn't get far. When I was 6, my parents moved my sister and I up to Iowa from Texas. Ironically, I that's one of the only good things that happened is I like Iowa a lot. The weather and the atmosphere and everything, but not I don't like being in a cult. Uh, my sister was 5, I was 6, and I knew it was going to be a huge change because my dad kept telling me that. He kept telling me things like, "You can't ride your bike anymore. We're not going to have a TV anymore." Just on and on and on, stuff like that. And I was about to go into public school. That I mean, I was literally about a month away from it, from going into first grade. And instead, we moved up to Iowa, and I went into first grade in what I will refer to as the cult's school in major air quotes. And, so it was a 24/7 for us kids. It was a almost 24/7 atmosphere, certainly every day for, 8 or 9 hours. And then on other days, we would get home from school. And then a couple hours later, we were going to, what they called a church service, but was basically a cult meeting. And that place, think of it like this: it was disguised as a Pentecostal church on the outside, and it was Pentecostal, but think of how crazy Pentecostalism is, and then dial that up another 1,000%, and add in physical abuse and sexual abuse and mental abuse. And I remember thinking, I was only 6 years old, and I remember thinking, I was at some park. It might have been with my aunt. I don't remember who. And I was playing on the the jungle gym bars, and I thought, 'cause- and we were leaving the next day, and I remember this thought, a 6-year-old. I thought, this time tomorrow, I'm going to be 1,000 miles away from here, and I wasn't looking forward to it, to say the least. All of our family lived in Fort Worth, almost everybody. Excuse me, my mom's 3 sisters all had kids, and I was used to playing with my cousins, going over to their house. Um, I loved it, and both sets of grandparents lived there, and so I mean, it was a major, great, wonderful family situation, extended family that we moved away from basically. And so it's not just that we we joined the cult, or I should say my parents did, and we came along. It's not that just that we joined the cult, it's that we left something really, really great behind. You know what I mean? Um, so I got there, and you have to imagine this building that this place was in. That's one thing I can talk about before tonight gets too long, and then I can kind of continue next week, next Thursday, if you guys want me to. But this building it was this red brick building, and it was huge. It was like, let's see, had like 2 levels of basement, and I mean, really spooky, really spooky basement. Um, and when I say basement, if you're picturing a church on the corner and then there's just a basement, no, I'm talking about a church building on a corner that was just sprawling down a third, maybe 10 to 15% of the block on one side and quite a bit on the other side. It was sprawling, and it was sprawling up and down too. Um, Dave, is that question for me? Did that experience guide you in being such a different parent? Well, I'd have to say yes. I mean, I always wanted, I knew if I had kids, I always wanted them to experience all the cool things and having a normal life that I missed out on. That's all I wanted. Um, I just wanted to be a normal kid. And what one thing that made it worse was as the years went by, every summer they would no, it wasn't Michael. They would send my sister and me down to spend a couple of weeks in Fort Worth with relatives. Uh, I have no freaking idea how the cult leader signed off on that, but I don't think he was paying attention to that. I think we just sort of squeaked by. And it was wonderful. I got to see each time, my cousins living as normal kids, going to public school, having a little boyfriend or a girlfriend or whatnot. And we would sit around. Like I said, this was a really nice extended family. I remember one time we went over to my oldest cousin's house. He was married, and almost everybody was over there, and they rented. I was probably 13 at the time, and they rented Silver Bullet on VHS, of course. And we all watched it in the living room and ate dinner, and it stands out as one of the best days of my childhood. And then the 2 weeks would be over, and it would be back to the cult. So it was like, hey, kid, here's what a normal life looks like. And then now that you've seen this again for this year for 2 weeks, you're going back to hell. So I remember one time just sobbing uncontrollably half the way back up to Iowa. And but yeah, as a kid, they didn't want kids wandering off. We weren't supposed to play with any other neighborhood kids, anything like that. And I mean that was the least of it. Um, but I feel like I'm telling this story in a kind of meandering way. But the 2 weeks down in Fort Worth every year, I'm glad they happened. I am glad they happened. But in another way, it was really it felt really horrible to see what my cousin Brian and my cousin Mandy and the other my other cousins were how they were living and everything, and then go back to the way it was before. By the way, Laird, which story was it? Um, Mysterium Tremendum, I think. In one scene, one character says to the other, he goes, um, "Know anything about Pentecostalism?" And the other guy says no, and the first guy says, "I've seen things you wouldn't fucking believe." And I told Laird later, after I read that again, I laughed and I told him later. I said, he wrote this before he knew me, I'm sure. But I said, now imagine Pentecostalism, uh, cranked up 1,000%. So anyway, yeah, the 2 weeks and, you know, no bikes, no movies, no TV. Uh, I'll give you one more example and then I'll leave off for tonight. When I was, I think 7 or 8, my mom liked hot tea. So when I was 7 or 8, and I would do this, I put some hot water in a kettle on the stove and put a tea bag in a cup and waited for it to boil. And after it did, like I had, dozens of times before, I picked it up with my right hand. I'm right-handed, and I, poured the hot water into the cup, right? Except I didn't. I had my left hand in the way, just not thinking. I mean, I was like 7, 8, 8 at the most, and I poured hot boiling water all over my left hand. So, and I'm screaming, and it hurt like hell. Hell, it hurt like you wouldn't believe. I mean, anyone that's been burned, you know how burns can be. Um, it was terrible. Now, the reason why I'm telling you this story, that could have happened to anybody, any kid growing up, right? Um, but my father would not take me to the emergency room. Instead, he told me to go to bed and to think about what it was I must have done for God to make that happen to me. And I couldn't sleep because of the pain. So all night, I honestly, I mean, geez, I'm only 8. You know, I, if my dad said it, it must be true, right? And so the entire night, not only am I just in agony, but, I'm trying to think of what it was I did wrong. So, and I know I'm not the only kid who had it rough growing up. A lot of people did, and other people have been in cults, um, and or very strict environments to one degree or another. Um, but that's part of my story, and it's hard to get out of my mind. So so yeah, I thought of the radio show, Michael. It's called Quiet Please. I wrote down Quiet Place. Quiet Please. Should probably Google Quiet Please Old Time Radio, and that'll get you to the right spot. Now, Actually, the best place to go, okay, is www.quietplease.org. Quietplease.org. And these are some these are some real weird fictions, radio stories for the most part. Um, and there are some of them that don't have the best. These are from the 40s that don't have the best sound quality, but whoever's running Quiet Please has run some of those through a filter to make them sound better. Now, to answer your question about, you know, you said Lovecraftian, but I'll say cosmic horror, not Lovecraftian stories. The very first one, Nothing Behind the Door, I think is good cosmic horror. I'm scrolling down here. If I'm remembering this right, A Mile High and A Mile Deep is another one. A mile deep in the mines below Butte, Montana, something or someone lurks. Um, if you like weird fiction, listen to all of these, and I think you'll like probably 90 to 95% of them. Another one that this is not cosmic horror, but this is just really weird and atmospheric and spooky as hell. You have to listen to this in the dark. Um, and it's called Rain on New Year's Eve. Um, it's it's very spooky. Getting back to cosmic horror. Oh, here's another one that's weird fiction. There Are Shadows Here is a good one. There Are Shadows Here. And so, okay, Northern Lights is a cosmic horror story, in my view. Northern Lights. And there's there's a story that when Quiet Please is mentioned, people always think, "Oh, I've heard that one story from Quiet Please," and I can't even remember what it is, but I think it's really overrated. I mean, if you haven't heard it, I mean, you'll enjoy it, but it's certainly not the best of them. And I probably shouldn't have brought it up because I can't even remember which damn one it was. Oh, the thing on the forable board. I mean, listen to that one too, but it's not quite. It's been overhyped. Let's put it that way. So there are there are 4 or 5 stories there that are either cosmic horror or weird fiction or both, and I think you guys will enjoy them. So, um, see if there's anything else I had to talk about. Oh, you know what? I guess they're doing a sequel to He Never Died. Have you guys seen that one? Um, I'm gonna rewatch that. I remember watching that probably 8 or 9 years ago and really, really liking it. Michael, these um, Quiet Please is from just after World War II, if I remember correctly. It's in the 40s. So, oh, She Never Died is okay. So they already did a sequel. Was the sequel good, Alan? I remember watching He Never Died, and I thought it was very surprisingly good. Apparently, the Watchers is not getting good reviews. Dakota Fanning stars, but the director is Ishana Night Shyamalan, M. Night Shyamalan's daughter. At the ripe old age of 24, she's directing a movie, and I would say 90% of the reviews are not favorable. I wasn't sure if this looked interesting or not, and now I think I'll give it a pass. Um, None of these I'm reading from HollywoodReporter.com. Unlike The Forest, none of these characters really draws you in, even if Fanning is always watchable. Um, John Lynch shows up late to lend some weathered gravitas. Fans of Campbell's fraught work in Barbarian, a movie that did know how to crank up the frights, will be disappointed by her thankless row here. The Watchers, sadly, is less disturbing than dull, less harrowing than hackneyed, right down to a closing shot that basically announces never trust a ginger. Okay. Um, Barbarian. Holy crap. Have you guys seen that one? Barbarian is really good. Talking about cranking up the ratcheting up the tension, you know. That that that's my favorite, that's my favorite kind of horror movie. It's not the ones with jump scares. I mean, they can be fun, and everything. It's the ones like It Follows that starts off in what looks like, normal life, right? I mean, the girl who dies right at the beginning of It Follows aside, you've got this girl and her sisters and then their friends, and they're just going through life or whatever, and then something happens to them that they didn't ask for, and they've got to um, run away from it in whatever way. And the best stories and the best movies just slowly keep ratcheting up that tension until you feel like, you know, it it gets almost unbearable. But that's my favorite kind of movie. I think it was Hitchcock that said a, and this is the difference in the kind of horror movies that I like. Hitchcock said, and I'm paraphrasing, something to the effect of a bomb is under a table and it explodes. That's surprise, i.e., jump scare, whatever. A bomb is under a table and it does not explode or has not exploded. You're not sure if it will explode. Anyway, he says that is suspense. So, hope I didn't mangle that paraphrase too badly, but you know what I mean. So, anyway, oh, yeah, I'll be talking to Paul on Sunday, Paul Tremblay, about his book that's coming out. I think it's coming out next week, called Horror Movie. And this book belongs in that cursed films subgenre, um, of books. Uh, like, one that I really liked was Memento Mori, the Fathomless Shadows. Um, I think I'm going to do a blog post with a list of books like this. Um, and, that way when people are waiting to read horror movie, they can read that. But it, you should definitely pre-order horror movie. It is awesome. And Hall said on social media, he said, with horror movie mere days away, my publisher made a handy video reminder that only the first edition will have red painted edges. A solution? Pre-order. Just saying. Let me give you guys the link. It does look pretty cool. There you go. It's in the side chat there. Um, Speaking of books, there are more copies of Pete Rollick's The Cthulhu Heresy and Other Lovecraftian Sins now available. And I'm going to post that in the side chat right now. Um, I'm going to recommend a movie for you guys, a horror movie, before I go. It's called Fragile. It stars Callista Flockhart, of Ally McBeal fame, Supergirl, etc. And it's really, really good from what I remember. Really good. I was got to thinking about it today for some reason. Um, the synopsis is: at her new job in a rundown children's hospital, a nurse desperately tries to keep her patients safe from a plague of random, mysterious attacks. So that's all you needed to know. I mean, as always, it's up to you, but don't don't do the um, don't watch the trailer. That's just my advice. But I think you'll find that it's a really good horror movie. Any film that comes to mind that best captures the feeling of being in a cult? I don't know. Best captures it. There's probably a lot that I've avoided, but um, The Endless captures some of it. Every cult is different. Every cult is different. Cult is different. But if I remember right, in the Endless, these brothers come back to this cult slash commune that they left when they were younger. Am I remembering that correctly? Um, but no, I guess I can't really answer that. I don't. I tend to avoid movies about cultish things for the most part. Um, Now Lovecraftian cults, that's fun to read, right? Um, yeah, I think that's all I got. Fragile. I think you guys will like the movie Fragile. If you haven't seen Barbarian, you should. If you haven't seen He Never Died, you should. And be sure to check out Quiet Please, quietplease.org. Uh, Last Days, yeah, yeah. And even so, if it's done right and it's in a horror kind of context, I enjoy it. Um, there's one more movie that I've not seen yet because I don't think it's out yet, but it's called Starve Acre, Starve, Acre, Acre, and it stars Matt Smith from Doctor Who and Morfydd Clark. I hope I'm saying her first name correctly. Um, Unearth ancient evil in a British folk horror. Um, it looks very atmospheric. I'm not sure when it comes out. Oh yeah, here we go. Starvaker is set to release in the UK and Irish cinemas on September the 6th. So I guess us in the US might have to wait. We'll see. But But yeah, I'm sure there's a whole host of movies that capture certain aspects of being in a cult. But the thing is, every cult is different, but they do have some aspects in common. They've got a charismatic leader that they believe in without question. He can say that the moon is made of green cheese, and they'll believe the guy. They'll follow him. They think that he's the one guy between them and God, so they're not going to piss him off. Um, yeah. One last thing I'll say about that, and I've got the newspaper articles, images from the 80s. When newspaper articles are being written about your church, and with the denial of the cult leader saying things like, "We are not a cult," because people kept accusing them of being a cult even back in the day. If you got to keep saying you're not a cult, you might be a cult, you know? So, if you guys really want, I'll try and dig those up sometime, but yeah. So anyway, yeah, check out, there's something about hospitals at night, isn't there? Um, Hospitals at night can be pretty spooky. And so Fragile kind of hit me where I lived when I watched it. I'm going to rewatch it because it's been, geez, 11 or 12 years since I've seen it. So anyway, guys, do you want me to keep doing this every Thursday? If you do, I certainly will. I enjoy it. Um, yeah, abandoned hospital, session 9, man, right, Hector? Session 9, abandoned psychiatric hospital. Man, you should get the DVD to session 9 and watch the interviews from the actors. They were weirded out too. One of them said, and now I'm going back 20 years after watching this movie, but one of the actors was saying he was on the roof and he kept hearing this voice telling him to jump, you know? Uh, so, so yeah, that's another good movie. Session 9. Anyway, let me know if you want me to keep doing this. Um, yeah, yeah, teachers especially have a struggle. I noticed that, was it Missouri? Yeah, it was Missouri. That's They're starting to quote ban bands, and I hope that takes off. So, I don't think people, I guess people have never read, I guess these folks have never read Fahrenheit 451 or other prescient books about book banning, you know, but they don't see the irony, I guess. But anyway, guys, yeah, if you want me to keep doing this, I will. If you want me to do that live reading, that would be shorter, depending on the story, of course. That would be shorter. Uh, The Night Wire would probably take me, what, 20 minutes to read? It's I love that story. I definitely want to start with that. And you guys know me, I wouldn't read an author's story. But if it's not under copyright anymore, it's been 100 years or whatever, then I think it would be a fun thing to do. So, and besides, when you do a live reading, you can always see me mess up on the words and have to correct myself. So there's some extra fun there. So anyway, thanks for the encouragement. Thank you for being with me for late night with Mike and Oreo. Late Night with Lovecraft eZine. I'll see you next Thursday night. I'll see you on Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern with Paul Tremblay. And last but not least, two things real fast, and then I'll let everybody get to bed. Um, if you're a Patreon, I really appreciate you keeping the bills paid. I just posted something yesterday, and I've got some more Patreon podcasts on the way. And if you're not a Patreon, I really hope you'll give it some thought. You know, I think most of us can afford $5 a month. If you can't, then please don't send it to me, honestly. Um, uh, but I think most of us can, even those of us that don't have much money, which I fall into that category. Um, every time someone becomes a Patreon, it it's not only helps, but it's very encouraging for me mentally. So thank you for that. Thanks to everyone who's a patron. Thanks for listening tonight, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week until I see you on Sunday. Have a good weekend. Thanks.